Right, so we have a jam-packed show for you this morning, guys. We're going to be looking at the issue of GNU. There's been talks about the issue of GNU, the issue of elections as well. But we've been past GNU. Remember, some 2008 with the GNU, and now we're going to elections. What works not in Zimbabwe? Is it a GNU, a government of national unity, or elections? What has worked in Zimbabwe very well? What can work to solve our problems in Zimbabwe? Is it a GNU or elections?
Well, I wonder because for me, really, Brighton, it looks like we failed with the elections, we failed with the GNU, but maybe with the GNU we can, take out some lessons and say, what did we do wrong last time and do things differently. But I prefer that we do elections and we have. Equal representation in parliament. We have different political parties in parliament, and they then work together. They support each other or argue against each other where necessary, and then that way they will have a constructive thing. I mean, maybe for me with the GNU, maybe now they start dining together, and when we are now all friends and everything, at times we tend not to tell each other the truth, to say, but you know what, here you are wrong, let's do things
But
this
my
way.
biggest worry about the GNU has been we have been past the GNU before, but we didn't even align our laws with our laws with the constitution, right? But our leaders were part of this GNU. Talking about they were dining together, but they didn't even push for reforms as part of the GNU, right? After the GNU, we're going back to over elections. The landscape is what is conducive for everyone to participate. But however, during that GNU time, nothing was done by the opposition parties together working with the ruling party to say, let's push for reforms, electoral reform, let's push for media reforms so that the environment can be conducive. Even now in parliament, we haven't seen members of parliament pushing. Obvious, if you're working now in different organizations, the obvious no one will accept it, but during the GNU, they're working together. Under one cabinet, they're working together with opposition and the ruling party. Why didn't they push for reforms, for better conducive environment after when we're going for elections? Obviously, also in Zimbabwe, elections, we have been having elections now and again, but the environment is not friendly for elections. Coverage of elections by the media, by the mainstream media, is not fair for all political parties. Looking at issue of violence again, and looking at the outcomes of election, look at ZAC. Is that credible to run a free and fair elections? No. So what can work in Zimbabwe? Is it a GNU or is it elections? What do you prefer to work in Zimbabwe, GNU or elections? What will solve our problems as Zimbabweans? Please do request the mic. I want to hear from you this morning on the issue of what we're talking about this morning, elections or GNU. What will work to solve our problems as Zimbabweans? Please do request the mic. I want to hear from you this morning.
Yes, quite interesting, really, Brighton, is just saying that, the political environment itself has got its own issues. We talk about the media coverage. We talk about even means of campaigning themselves. For instance, transport. All the political parties, I'm sure they don't have equal access to transport people to their campaign. We talk of rallies. We've had issues with rallies. Some saying no, we are not given a chance to do our rallies. Police come and disrupt our rallies. Some say no, we are fine, we get to do our rallies and all that. And I would like to hear from our guests here to say, really, what do you think works in Zimbabwe? Is it the elections or a GNU? Yeah.
Please do request the mic, guys. Want to hear from you this morning. But also, if I look at the issues of the GNU, right? When there was the GNU, right, Government of National Unity, then between when there was the Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai, the late, and the deputy was Professor Adam Tambarens, and also deputy Dr. Thokozani Kupe, and also led by the President Robert Mugabe. We saw a better living conditions. Civil servants could get their salaries in US dollar. We saw even education sector led by President David Coltart as the minister. The education was better, right? We saw even transport, ICT led by Chamisa as the minister of ICT. Things became better. But what can you say as Zimbabweans? Do we need a GNU for things to become better or to solve our problems, or we need elections? If elections solved our problems in Zimbabwe, looking back into history, if elections solved our problems since 1980, can you say elections have solved our problems? But for me, there was a resemblance of change when we had a GNU. because they're working together, right? They know we're going to tap into so and so's wisdom, we're going to tap so and so, maybe skills and so on. There was a resemblance of change and hope for Zimbabweans, and life was better then, as compared to if you have an election now, things become worse.
Yeah, I wonder what our guests think about that. And then again, remember, there's the issue of mistrust. There's so much mistrust with, I mean, the political parties themselves, the opposition, and all the other parties. There's so much mistrust. And then again, there's also this finger pointing to say so and so is to blame, so and so is a ZANU project, so and so is a European project, and all that. So I wonder really how what will work, what can work. I'm really looking forward to hearing from our guests what they think about.
I see Bashona, they just contacted has become our speaker. The Bashona, good morning, welcome to this morning on Sake. In brief, say what can work in Zimbabwe to solve our problems, elections or GNU?
Good morning, my brother. How are you doing? How are you, my sister? This issue, it's into two, right? And one, we've got an obligation as a nation, which we gave ourselves and which we pinned ourselves to, and that is the Constitution of Zimbabwe. And the other thing, which is very, very, very important, is that we cannot amend the Constitution so that we don't go to election unless if we have probably referendum, or if ZANU-PF with its majority in parliament can use that to go out of the way and try to amend the constitution and have what we call the change of election dates, or the change of electoral reforms. So the most important thing before we even think of GNU, or before we even think of postponing elections, what does the Constitution say? Right? I heard you mention the issue of GNU. Remember, during that time, the GNU on its own, it actually left our country in a bad shape. It actually left our country in a shape that we are failing now to recover from. Number one, we had so many companies, over 70,000 registered companies. They actually deregistered during that time. Zimbabwe was tended to be a supermarket by mainly companies from South Africa and the Chinese. Why? Because we're using the money that is needed all over the world, which is US dollar. So GNU on its own, economically and strategically, it benefited mainly in the region South Africa, not us as Zimbabweans. Because there's nothing that we produced during that time only to be a supermarket where you would find 99.9% of South African produce. You would see them in our supermarkets, in our stores, in our even in the streets, or in those smaller shop, we call them kiosk. You see. So what that means to a country like Zimbabwe, which wants to be competitive in terms of investment, or in terms of direct investment, brings in the much needed employment, the much needed production. The economists will tell you that that was big problem that we created. Politically, yes, there was more like of stability. There was a kind of unity amongst people, amongst political parties and so forth. But the truth of the matter is, We cannot have that kind of animal again in our country. We cannot have GNU again in our country. What we need, my brother here, is that we need to have elections. If you lose, you lose. If you win, you win. Let's not continue to have this kind of election mode every day, where someone thinks if I don't win, if ZEC don't pronounce me as a winner, it means elections were rigged. If someone pronounced as a winner, it means the elections were free and fair. We have seen this, and it's now more like a record, right? We had by-elections 2 years ago. Our opposition party in Zimbabwe, they never complained that elections, or they never come out and say elections were rigged. They were actually ululating and clapping hands and making noise, celebrating about them, right? But the moment they lose, they will tell you that elections were rigged. With the same system, with the same, electoral laws which are there, they will always come and complain, make noise about them. So the question is, who is a fool here? The biggest fool is the electorate. We are the ones who, my brother, with these same people. They were in the inclusive government the time that you're referring to, the opposition. They had majority in parliament, they had speaker of parliament, they had minister who was responsible for parliamentary affairs. In other words, the opposition, they were in charge. But they failed to make one single electoral reform. One single electoral reform. But today, on the eve of election, that's when you hear them talking about electoral reforms. That's when you hear talking them about we want electoral reforms. I was laughing this other day when I saw Prince Dubeko Swanda handing his or their political their electoral reforms to Minister of Justice just 2 months ago. Where were they for the past 5 years? Wangavari Kupi, they were busy making noise, singing in the parliament. But when it comes to the issues that matters most to them, issues of cars, issues of $40,000, $50,000, you see them converge, speaking with one voice. So, to me, the person or the people who are victims to these things, it's us, the electorate, the voters, right? Because the people that we're voting into power, they don't care about you and me. They care about what they're going to get out from. Get out with out of this term of office they found themselves into, because we are the ones who give them, and they know they have to benefit. How can you tell me an MP or MP will tell you that they want a stand in Harare so that they can build a house in Harare? What for? Why does that person need a house in Harare? Yet it is representing people in Kai, yet it is representing people in Gwanda, yet it is representing people in Shurugwi. Huh? These are the questions that we should ask ourselves. Do we have the right people in parliament? People who represent us? Do we have the right people in local government? People who represent our needs? That's where the whole issue is. But as it is, my brothers and sisters, fellow Zimbabweans, we are not yet there. Because the people that we are choosing, they are not representing us. That's the reason why now we ask ourselves, do we need elections or do we need GNU? If we have GNU, what are we going to have? Look at the expenditure which was there during GNU. One single minister walked out from that marriage with 7 vehicles, and a house on top of that. And how many were there? There were more than 72 MPs. I mean ministers, including ministers for provincial affairs. 72. Right? Calculate 72 by 7 vehicles. How much is that for one person? And including a house. What does that supposed to mean to you? So if I hear someone saying that a GNU was beneficiary, I think it was beneficiary because you would see milk from South Africa, see bread from South Africa in the supermarkets. That's the honest truth. But the person who benefited most is Morgan Tsvangirai, is Robert Mugabe, is Nelson Chamisa, is Atam Tambara. You see, because those people, look what they walked out in that thing with. Morgan Tsvangirai would refuse houses. On top of 5 million that he got from RBZ, he refused a house in Broadale and he chose another house in Highlands. Right? How many vehicles did he walk out with? You spoke about Nelson Chamisa. The house that is renting out today, he got it from government. How many vehicles did you walk out with? It is Mercedes Benz, Land Cruiser, Prado, Isuzu, you name it. Mercedes Benz. So what does that mean to you as a Zimbabwean? We're actually giving these people jobs. They will make money. They will make sure that their children, they are going to a good, nice, expensive schools.
Bashona, I see you have more speakers. Bashona, thanks so much. I'm going to come back to you, Bashona, later on.
No, I appreciate. Let me end by saying, Zimbabweans, we are the ones who can speak and who can decide Zimbabwe where it's supposed to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bashona, for that contribution this morning. We're talking about the issue of the elections or GNU, right? What will work to solve our problems as Zimbabweans? Is it elections? If elections worked in Zimbabwe to solve our problems, is it the GNU? Did the GNU try to solve our problems? That's what we're talking about this morning. I see we have an advocate. And let me go back to Senor. Senor, I'm giving you the mic now. You can go ahead with the contribution.
Another very good day, but disappointing moment. How are you? Thank you, host. Thank you, Zimbabweans here present. Look, allow me to say something. The Zimbabwe that I want is the one that speaks to solving the problems of Zimbabwe. I think we have a very serious problem which speaks to constitutionalism. Everything that we are talking about, the bickering symptoms, it boils down to the constitution. The summary of the constitution, it is a colonial constitution. The commonality there is it favors the elite. It is that simple and straightforward. All the rhetorics that we appoint leaders, it's all nonsensical, but I think we need to wake up. I'll continue to say this. I'm not for violence, but I'll continue to say we need a revolutionary spirit to remove a system of oppression following the trails of those who liberated Zimbabwe. Right? Elections are for convenience. There is no solution that will come from elections. Nothing. And what I'm saying is, we all know we may want to hide behind the finger. We may be suffering from denial. What do I mean by we all know? The first GNU 1980, we should be clear about it. There are decisions made by leadership. They have no respect for the electorate, me, you, and all of us. The first GNU was 1980, where there was power sharing between Nkomo and Mugabe. It's a subject for another day. There are several other GNUs that have taken place. The point I'm making on GNUs, what is the purpose of voting? When at the end of the day, the leaders will not do anything significant to remove poor people from poverty. Number two, decisions are made without consultations at national level, which speaks to a GNU, again, promoting themselves. GNU doesn't favor me, it doesn't promote me. This rhetoric statement that there is peace and stability, it cannot make us suffer. What is peace and stability? Which is actually an interchange, or for them to strategize to say, how much more can we loot? How many more? Which direction can we look? Can we look east now? Now they are looking west. Where yesterday they were saying the West are betting with the opposition. I'm not saying anything that is out of line here. We all understand that there is cheap politicking where the current administration right now, under the auspice, they are resuscitating relations which is against the ethos again. The revolution struggle was fought to remove a system of oppression. Now, when you see a GNU coming, the question is, how is it benefiting me and all of us? I hear my brother here is talking of production. I, for one, I'm not going to listen to any lie from any politician promising anyone jobs, because that is a problem which is global. It's an open secret that because of technology is displacing. They've got no clue, they have no idea, they do not have any solution to say, now that it's a natural cause world over, that technology is taking over all the jobs. They are talking of retooling, which is going against the wind. We are in a digital era. So these are promises and lies. But when we are tired, after 2020 and all that, they bring a new era. And this is the era now. And what is so confusing right now, there's so much talk about registered to vote. We are not questioning to say, isn't that a divorce? To me is equivalent. Because an election, to me, I equate it to a divorce, because you are saying you are going separate ways. But at the same time, the same nation, there is GNU, there is Coppola, which seeks to work together. Can you see there's a contradiction there? How much resources are we losing? I think it's high time we just speak clearly and openly to say, no, you have done your part. Please, can you come up with a new strategy where you sit in the advisory board? Pave way for the young generation. What the current president is doing is good, but not good enough. To appoint at party level young, vibrant people. And I know it's a stolen ideology from the opposition Voice of Zimbabwe. Some of us, we know that even the G40 is not a ZANU-PF project. It is the cries of many sons and daughters to say, no. Give this portfolio, give a chance to the young people. But it's a delayed approach. Some people are actually using that as a milestone. They are copying and putting things that come from people to their convenience. It's not going to change anything. So, ladies and gentlemen, I really want to believe we have to decide what we want. This democratic system, it does not work. It will not work. It can only work in an ideal situation. An ideal situation is where there is agreement, there is rule of law. Have you ever asked us to solve a question? How do we end up having a ballot? They sign, these people, they agree to say we are ready. They agree. But then after the ballot, they cry foul. In between, in the interim, because it's now more like for convenience that we have to. We are now pressurized by the constitution, the same constitution that oppresses us. That we are in a rush to have elections because the constitution says this. If a constitution is not working for the people, it must be removed. Now, in the interim, within the 5 years, what are they busy doing?
Signoro, allow me to interrupt you there. I'll give you a chance to speak again, but for now, I think let's wait a bit and give others a chance as well. Interesting observations there coming from Bashona and Signoro, and I see we've
allow me to say we are building Zimbabwe here. I'll humble myself. We are now watching because there is no animal farm. We do not want members of any political party or creed to be given more time to speak and speaking things that not bring solutions to Zimbabwe. I respect your view, your direction that I should yield my mic for now. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Senora, for that contribution this morning. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the issue of elections or GNU in Zimbabwe. What will work to solve our problems as Zimbabweans? So please do request the mic. Want to hear from you this morning. I see Advocate Herbert Nyarauta. Your hand is up. Please do go ahead, say with the contribution this morning.
Thank you, host Bento, Shona, and everyone listening. I'm gonna repeat myself again and again like a broken record. I've been repeating this yesterday. I've been repeating this in every space. I've been singing this tune from last year when I was holding spaces. we need to understand the historical context of Zimbabwe and Africa at large. Zimbabwe is a country which has been so much polarized since the historical context, even as far back as we talk of the Rosy Empire, when we were having wars, when we didn't have a democratic system, even until the people from the south come in and wars are fought, and until Zimbabwe gets colonized, and even the Rhodesians themselves realize that there is nothing that can work which is called a multi-party democracy, which is an idea that we were given from Western countries, and an idea which is a utopia which does not exist anywhere in this world. If you go to America right now, ladies and gentlemen, there's no multi-party democracy. America, which makes itself the bastion and proponents of multi-party democracy in Africa, does not have that system. What they have for centuries is a bi-system, a dual system of the same hand, inside hand and outside hand, which Americans are always shown every 4 years. The Democrats and Republicans who sit down and agreed about a system which will be given to Americans. And they have what are called swing voters, where people move between either Democrats or Republicans. And you have never seen in America people beating each other in the street. Never. It's only in Africa. It's only in Zimbabwe. They drink tea together, these people. Now, us Africans and Zimbabweans, for example, have been sold this dummy which is called a multi-party democracy, where you find a country with 15 million people has 23 party presidential candidates. Where have you seen that insanity? Now, as a result of trying to implement something that does not exist, which the Western countries push on us and celebrate, we find ourselves with authoritarian regimes, number one. We find ourselves with bickering, because this thing does not exist and it's not applicable. Now, I've been saying this again and again and again. In 1979, Lancaster House Conference, we had a document which was shoved down our throats by the British, whether you liked it or not. Robert Mugabe, Joshua Nkomo, Reverend Stolle, Muzorewa, the Rhodesians, everyone were told you are not going to leave Lancaster House Conference until you agree on this document. It was never a document which was something which was voluntarily taken. 1980 is the first government of national unity, which was given by the Lancaster House Agreement itself. 20 seats were reserved for white people. ZAPU was given the Home Affairs. It was always for ZAPU Home Affairs. And we emerged from that agreement with peace. But here comes the Americans, here comes the Western countries. They try to push the narrative of multi-party democracy. Do you know why? Because multi-party democracy, always they know that what it does in Africa, we are divided into tribal politics. And it's very easy to rule a country when it's divided along tribal lines. It's the same thing in South Africa, it's the same thing in Chad, it's the same thing in Europe, in Cairo, Egypt. It's the same thing in Central African Republic. Now, I'm speaking to my fellow Zimbabweans to say, insanity is repeating the same thing again and again and expecting different results. Ever since we started holding elections in 1980, the so-called democratic elections, there is a correlation between the downgrading of our economy or economic problems with elections. Every 5 years we've had elections, we've gone backwards instead of going forward. And what I'm calling on Zimbabweans right now is to wake up and smell the coffee, sit down, talk, have political consensus so that we can move forward. That's why you see in 2008, what worked is not democracy. If democracy worked, Morgan Tsvangirai and the MDC would have gone back to their supporters to ask for a referendum whether they should join the GNU or not. They did not. Because you are nothing in this democratic system. You are nothing. So, anybody, because you are nothing in this democratic system, you are nothing. So, anybody who still believes that they are something, they have a say in the geopolitics of Zimbabwe through a democratic system, you are daydreaming, my friend. It's high time we sit down, accept. As I'm going to land, Charumbira says we are wasting money through elections every 5 years. We bicker and we give a chance to our enemies to put sanctions, to what, not to give us money, etc, etc. And mukoma varuti yatitaurirane. Now, I'm saying to Zimbabweans, ngatitaurirane Zimbabweans. Charumbira and Chamisa were sitting side by side. Let's speak to each other and come up with a homegrown institution which is going to work for us. I thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Advocate, for raising those issues. Raising very important issues right there. What you're saying, let's sit down together, let's have a dialogue. But our question for this morning is elections or GNU, what is the solution to Zimbabwe's problems? Please do request the mic, and I want to hear from you this morning. I see you have many speakers just joining there. Bento, your mic is, you have the mic, you can go ahead, Bernard, and have your say.
Hello, host. Hello, everyone. Those I know, those I don't, in your numbers. I've listened to Bashona, Senior, and Advocate talking. They gave various, perspectives. But while I agree with all of them, even Herbert, who spoke now about the GNU, the merits, but I think for now, where we are is rather too late. Let's have the elections. They're only 6 months away. And like what Bashona said, people, what they should be talking about is facts to say if you lose, you lose. You can't hold the nation and ransom anymore. If you win, you win. And whatever needs to be done now, let's talk about it. If it is the environment, let's talk about it and come up with a pact so that we have a good environment where everyone is free to campaign, everyone to free to say what they want and all this kind of thing. GNUs don't work because they kill competition. As much as people want to talk too much about that GNU benefited those people who went into it, and our South African capital, which obtained us in a warehouse. And yes, the GNU it dissipated the hyperinflationary environment. The macroeconomic environment stabilized. That's the only benefit the people of Zimbabwe had because of where they were coming from. Empty shops, high prices, carrying sacks of money to buy a toothpick. But nothing really happened. Nah, the towns were still dirty, garbage was never collected, the roads were bad, no industry or mine or anything was open or big investment. No one can point to me people who were employed that time who got new jobs, fresh jobs, or any big investment which came to Zimbabwe during that time. No one can point to me about any roads which were paved or refurbished. Harare was still dirty. I remember I was seeing heaps of dirty. People were happy in the dirtiness because there was relief. The GNU came just as a relief. It's like when you saw what and a few drops of water fall, of rain, sorry, fall. People feel relieved, but the rain goes away and nothing happens. That's what the GNU is. I want the political opponents to go and fight it out in the elections, and so that if it means talking about GNUs, let's talk after elections. That's what I can say for now. Thank you, host, and everyone who is here.
Thank you so much, Bento, for your contribution. quite interesting contributions, Brighton. Some are saying, you know what, let's just go for elections. If you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. And some are saying, no, let's do the GNU. They've stated the benefits, and Advocate even said, you know what, we will be decolonizing the political systems in Africa if we think of a GNU.
So my thoughts earlier on was saying on the issue of the GNU, I was looking at the background of the GNU, right? Things became better. There was a resemblance of hope for Zimbabweans. Civil servants got their salaries in US dollar. Things were becoming better, right? And we were not complaining much. Things were becoming better for Zimbabweans. But year in, year out, after elections, we see things getting worse and worse and worse for Zimbabweans. So I'm asking you this morning, what works better to solve our issues as Zimbabweans? Is it GNU or elections? Do you want to continue doing elections, but however going down all the time? But when we tried to have this GNU, remember 2008, we had a GNU, there was a resemblance of war, Punyana. Some things were becoming better. But again, I was saying, even if our MPs go into these GNUs, they don't talk about reforms. They keep quiet about reforms. Then later on, when the GNU ends, we come back to say there are no reforms. The reforms are not conducive for us to do elections, but they're part of this GNU. I see you have more speakers joining in there. Speak to power. Good morning. Welcome to this morning. Nasaka, you can go ahead and ever say.
Good morning, Brighton. Good morning, Nohlasha, and good morning to everybody. Just listening to the conversation this morning, I don't know. The question is, what do we want as a country? I think is the important question. What do we want? If we want democracy, then we need to understand what we want. If we don't want democracy, then we also need to understand what we need to have in place of that, right? So we speak about. I'll start from the liberation struggle. What were we fighting for, right? Our grandparents, they were fighting for one man, one vote. Is that what is happening on the ground in Zimbabwe now? I think I'll leave that one as an open question, right? And we did have a GNU. Going to the question, we did have a GNU. And that GNU, yes, worked. People got salaries, people got money and everything else. But after the term had expired, what happened? We went back to the same cycle again, where it was one party in charge of the situation and nothing really changed. So for me, what we need to be able to understand is the conditions at which we are conducting elections. Are they free and fair? Is that a free and fair situation? Is that being attained, or is that being enabled within GNU, so that we can create and we can ensure that when we have these elections, people actually are registered, people actually have the voter education that they need for them to be able to vote, utilize the vote, and then at the end of elections, we actually do not have violence. We do not have people being stopped from campaigning. They've got access to media. They've got access to everything they need for conducive elections. I do not feel that a GNU is the ideal way to do things, because all it simply does is that it gives people the advantage whereby they'll say, you see, we've made things better. So after this, it's all over. Let's go back to what we were doing before. And 10 years on, they will ask again for another GNU, so that they can be comforted by a spite or respite of the struggles of yesteryears. So what I am saying is, elections are critical, because the fundamentals of the liberation struggle are based on one man, one vote. But these were supposed to be free and fair and credible elections. Are we getting that? And we're not getting anywhere, I think would be the question for me. So I'd rather give you a question rather than an answer. And then for me, as for the GNU, we did not get the right reforms that we required for us to have free, fair and credible elections when we had the last GNU. What is the next GNU going to achieve for anyone? And are we saying that we're going to sort of move away from the prerequisites of the liberation struggle by asking for this, to say that we suspend the rights? What stops the GNUs from being the next governments for the next 50 years saying, it's not yet conducive for you to do elections. It's not yet conducive for you to do, because at the end of the day, we know that power corrupts. And if we allow people to dictate how things should run without our say, we have lost everything that we would want as a people and as a country. So I do not agree with dictating to people of Zimbabwe what they need to have. Thank you.
Thank you so
Can you allow me to make a quick response there?
Wait, Signoro, I'm going to give you the mic. Wait, Signoro, our speakers lined up to speak. Wait, Signoro, I'm going to give you the mic after other speakers have spoken. Please do bear with us. I'm going to give you the mic after others have spoken as well. Let's be fair here, comrade, please. I'm seeing Sanelisi where you are now a speaker. You can go ahead and listen with the contribution as well.
All right. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are clear, ma'am. Please do go ahead to the contribution.
Yes. Just to agree maybe with what most of the speakers have said, I think as Zimbabwe right now, we are stuck because the kind of leadership that we have, yes, sheer position that we are in right now. Election, even if we go for the elections right now, even if we go for the GNU right now, and the people that have been in power and in positions of influence and have shown which they are not capable. So what's we offer now in GNU? Yes, still we go back to the same position here, and then we start crying again. So I mean, for me, I think what we need as Zimbabweans, we need election. In election, as people, we need political consciousness. People have to understand politics. People have to understand politics and try and identify our own leaders as abantu. Because if with the current two parties that we have, they have shown ukuthi both of them, they are just power hungry people that don't want to be led by others. Abanye, they've been eating, they don't want to give abanye abantu in fact they abafuni ukusutha, and they still want to continue putting abantu emakhoneni as we are right now. So I think election is an option that we can take as a people party. Election khonapho kuma candidates, people have to be conscious sibekwazi ukuthi sivotelani. I think the contribution lami engayiletha.
Thank you so much, Sanelisiwe, for that contribution. I see we have Moyo Velile. I'd like to hear from you, sir. You've been listening, and as someone who's in politics, what do you think works? What do you think will work for Zimbabwe? Should we go for an election, or should we just go for a GNU?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. And also greetings to the listeners. I think this is a very profound debate, especially looking at Zimbabwe and the nature of politics that people are experiencing in Zimbabwe. And if we make reference to the previous GNU, probably we can say maybe it was the first of its kind, and probably people were not used to that kind of a situation. We didn't see much coming out, especially from the opposition, to influence, especially the change to policies. And we saw that even post the GNU, things remained the same. But nonetheless, if we look back at what is happening, what has been happening for the past 40 years, the issue of the one-party state that initially was in control until the year around 99, 2000, when we saw another great opposition through the MTC. And then that was a new wave or a new era that was being introduced of a two-party state. And if we look at the current situation of a two-party state since year 2000, you'll actually see that you actually moved to another wave of difficulty within Zimbabwe, whereby it is now struggling for power, trying to sanitize ZANU-PF of its tendencies of the past 20 years, and then the power struggle now going on ahead. You'll discover that we are not yet in a situation where we can actually answer to the needs of the people in Zimbabwe. So for that reason, I think a GNU, precisely if it is well tackled, it may actually be the answer to the current problems that we have. Because if you look at the main opposition right now, the two-party system that is in Zimbabwe now favors ZANU-PF and MDC or CCC that is now at play. People are either voting between CCC or ZANU-PF. For that reason, you'll discover that most of the things that are affecting people are not being addressed. And for that reason, if things were actually being loosened up to allow for a new transition, we have seen that the one-party state doesn't work, the two-party state doesn't work. But now, if we're genuine about everything about Zimbabwe, we should have actually come to a point to say, how can we be inclusive to everyone so that at least we can have all the voices in parliament to speak and address all the difficulties and the challenges that people are going through. And for that reason, I think I can agree with Advocate to say it may be probably a way to sanitize part of Africa's approach to politics, because what you're actually trying to experiment here, most of the things are not working for Africa. Look at South Africa. I think we are heading towards a system of GNU as well in South Africa, whereby ANC is being neutralized. No other opposition party has got power. So it helps to have no party having absolute power to control everything. Unlike what people are trying to advocate for here, to say, let's have another alternative. Yes, we need an alternative, but now the situation has already become so tense to a point that it is difficult to have that power, that party coming in and exercising democracy. Either way, they will actually struggle to take over from what the other party has been doing. That's what we've been seeing with the current opposition, the main opposition. They've been trying to grab power, but they've not been addressing the really things that are affecting people. They're actually struggling to have power to remove ZANU-PF. That's why they've been this slogan, let's remove ZANU-PF, let's remove ZANU-PF. The fact here is they are trying to grab power. This is not what we want. What we want is to have all the voices being included and everyone being empowered to have a say in what is happening in Zimbabwe. Let me end here for now. Thank you very much, Nonhlanhla and Brighton.
Thanks so much, Baba Moyo, for that contribution this morning. Thanks so much for raising those issues to say what are the merits of the GNU then, and will it work going forward? And also looking at the elections, do we need elections? What about democracy play as well as constitutionalism? I see we've, let me try to give 3 speakers. I'm going to give you 1 minute each and then we'll wrap up the show because we're now 27 minutes past 9. I will need to end up the show now. I'm going to start with you, Senor. I'm going to give you a minute and then I'll give others as well a minute to wrap up this conversation this morning.
Yeah, let me do a quick one. Zimbabwe is going to set a precedence world over. The question which is being raised here, I think, particularly speak. What is it that can be done to change a system? A system, it fails to work. If it fails to work, it has to be moved. I thought someone was going to ask me, democratic system will not work and it's not for us, and it does not work and it shall not work. The GNU, the kind of GNU is a consensus where Zimbabweans have to decide. These rhetoric statements by politicians to say Zimbabwe is for Zimbabweans. And when it comes to model, rather views that are actually working, that have a projection that Zimbabwe can work, which speaks to GNU, there's no consideration of the same people that over the years they'll be talking of Zimbabwe is for Zimbabweans. A homegrown solution is the one that requires Zimbabweans to have a referendum. I know what I'm talking about. A referendum is not a cheap thing. It needs a lot of sacrifice. It takes a lot of money. It's either we rush, we keep dealing with symptoms, or we understand that what we need now is an interim government. Possibly Zimbabwe should set a precedent that an interim government, a president or a leader who is probably non-aligned to any political party, because that is problematic, because you cannot have either side taking over. But the role of uniting the people of Zimbabwe should come back to us as Zimbabweans. And inclusivity, it means inclusivity. All parties, all stakeholders included. Not political parties. Political parties, politics has failed. It's not for us. I would like to use my mic and I would like to say, as usual, this is a struggle. It's not a one-day band. It's not a one-man band. It's not a one-day event. But the struggle for economic freedom, it will continue, and victory is certainly guaranteed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Signoro, for those remarks. And, well, quite interesting. I'd like to give this mic to Advocate Herbert to also share with us. Remember, Advocate, just 1 minute.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. Fellow Zimbabweans, my parting shot is that insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. Elections have never worked in Zimbabwe. Each time we've had elections, we've gone into a crisis. And what has helped us to go out of that crisis is a government of national unity, 1980, 1987, and 2008. Perhaps the reason why people are against the GNU is how it was done. A GNU in 2008 was a missed opportunity for politicians and Zimbabweans to sit around the table and have a political consensus of driving us as Zimbabweans on a model that we want. So now when we are talking about a GNU, we are not talking about a political actors dialogue. We are talking about a government of national unity, which includes all tribes, which includes all factors of the society, including faiths, traditional authorities, civil society, students, and everyone else. And this is what we need. We don't want to go into that insanity of 2023 again, have disputed elections, and go back to madness. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Advocate. Bashona, I see you have the mic. Please do go ahead and say with your 1 minute contribution, and then we'll wrap up the space this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much, my brother, and I truly appreciate for the opportunity once again. One thing that I can urge people of Zimbabwe now, what is needed by us, the voters, is to bring people who can bring change to us in our communities. This thing of continue voting people like Maurice Jai, who has been a member of parliament for the past 23 years and doing nothing, that's the reason why we think election doesn't work. This thing of having people who have ownership of community or of constituents wards should stop. We should remove these people so that we can have people who have got people at heart, people who think of development and national development. This thing of people who think that if they get power, it's done. They will see them. We'll see them after 5 years if they want to get another term of office. Should stop. We should have a conclusive, a united force in every community to say, "Iwa atikude apa. We don't want you there." Ngiyakufuna. I don't know if I pronounce my Ndebele correct there. We don't want you because you're not doing things that benefit the community. You are doing things that benefit yourself. Look at the councillors who are having stands all over Blawayo, right? MPs who are everywhere. What are they doing? These are the things that we are supposed to discuss. For me, elections work if we put right people in office. Thank you so much.